We just got some new neighbors, so I'm going to whip together a batch of chocolate chip cookies for them. So I'm going to start by creaming together a cup of butter, half a cup of white sugar, 1 cup of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of pink Himalayan sea salt, and 2-ish teaspoons of vanilla. Anyone who follows me knows I never measure. Anyways, while I'm creaming that together, I learned about the history of the chocolate chip cookies, and I thought I'd share. The chocolate chip cookies were invented in the 1930s at the Toll House Inn in Whitman, Massachusetts by a woman named Ruth Graves Wakefield. I'm also going to mix in 2 room temperature eggs, 1 at a time. Her original recipe was called the Toll House Chocolate Crunch Cookie, and that was what she published in her 1938 cookbook, which eventually led to a deal with Nestle for them to print the recipe on their chocolate bar packaging. I'm now going to sift in 2½ cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Anyways, back to the history here. The cookies were quite popular. However, during the Great Depression and World War II, they became even more popular because they were an American household staple. They're easy to adapt when there was the food rationing. If you couldn't get sugar, you could use honey, and if you couldn't find butter, you could use lard. So these cookies were always readily available for the making, and they were, so everyone loved them. Anyhow, Miss Ruth Graves Wakefield was a baker again and the owner of the Toll House Inn, and she made all the desserts and everything there, and this of course was one of her most popular. But this Toll House Inn was located in between Boston and Cape Cod, and it attracted celebrities and travelers during the Great Depression, so she made a lot of cookies. And the Nestle began printing the recipe on their semi-sweet chocolate bars, and then eventually the newspaper started printing articles about the cookies because, again, of their popularity during the Depression in World War II, and they eventually changed the name to chocolate chip cookies, which just stuck, and that's now what we call them. But the coolest thing I learned about these cookies was that in 1997, Massachusetts legislature passed a bill making the chocolate chip cookie the state cookie, and I thought that was super cool. Also, the recipe calls for 2 cups of chocolate chips. I didn't have a full 2 cups, so I did sub in some. I used mini chocolate chips and mini M&Ms, and it's equally as delicious, of course. You're going to bake these at 375 for about 10-ish minutes, and they are incredibly delicious. I hope you give them a try. Please subscribe and follow for more. It helps me keep making these videos. Enjoy!